Welcome to TopSolid'7. This is the tutorial for designing the vise. To get started, we're going to open up an existing project. So we're going to go to our project manager. And I'm going to scroll up until I get to my standard tutorials, and I'm either going to launch the tutorial in inches or millimeters. In this case, we'll do it in millimeters, so I'm going to double click there. The very first thing that we want to do is we want to design the base of our vise. So to do this, I'm going to go to my project manager, which is currently docked on the right side of my screen. I'm going to right mouse button click on the folder that I want to put the part in, and I'll just left mouse button select part. And like that, TopSolid'7 has created a new part for us and is currently asking us to name the file. Let's go ahead and name that base. Once I've finished typing the name, I'll just hit enter on my keyboard or click somewhere else on the screen. From here, we're going to create our first sketch. To do this, make sure you're on the Sketch tab, that you're in planar mode, and then go ahead and select the contour icon. You'll notice that TopSolid'7 automatically orients us to the XY plane. To get started, we're going to go ahead and click right on our 0, 0 point, and we're going to come up some distance. We'll come over some distance, and I'm not too worried about the sizes just yet. We're going to come down, and notice when I hover on that, I get that little round point that's adding a relationship, and then I can either click back to 0, or I can hover anywhere on the model, or the sketch. So I'll just go ahead and click right to 0, and like that, we've laid out our first sketch. From here, we're going to add some dimensional constraints. To do that, I'm going to go up to my constraint icon. Now, for power users out there, you can also get to constraint just by right-clicking on the screen and choosing constraint. Both will get you to the same place. And now we're going to add some dimensions. I'll start right here. And right now, it's coming up and measuring as 20 millimeters. Well, according to the print in the tutorial, we want that to be 40. And watch what happens when I hit enter. You notice how TopSolid'7 was smart enough to auto-scale the entire sketch so that the roughed-in sketch is maintained. Let's add a few more dimensions real fast. I'm going to add one here. That's going to be 25. We'll add another one right here, and that's going to be 24. And now at this point, you'll notice that the sketch is blue on all sides except for right here, which is purple. What does that mean? Well, that means that that portion of the sketch is under constrained. How do I know? Well, if I left click and hold my mouse on it and grab, I can drag that sketch, but only left and right. And that's because these dimensions and these geometric constraints that were automatically added when we created the sketch have everything else tied to our 0, 0. So let's go ahead and add our last constraint. I'm just going to select this bottom edge, click to locate, and set the value to 155 millimeters. And like that, our sketch is now fully constrained. The next step will be to extrude this. Now there are two ways to get to extrude. The first would be go to the shape icon bar and choose extrude. But another way to do that would just be to right click anywhere on the screen and use the contextual menu that TopSolid'7 has created for us. And this contextual menu you'll find is more or less a smart menu because it changes based on what you're currently doing within TopSolid'7. So here I'll choose extrude from the right mouse button contextual menu. And like that, TopSolid'7 automatically puts us into an isometric mode so that we can go ahead and set the extrusion depth that we want. In this case, we want to pull this measurement up till it's at 40 millimeters. Well, there's a couple ways to do that as well. I can left click and hold on the arrow and dynamically pull this to get it exactly where I want. Or I can double click on the balloon here and type 40. And yet again, I can go into the dialog over here on the left-hand side of my screen and type the value that I want. Whatever makes the most sense to you, feel free to use TopSolid'7 in that way. Once we've set the value that we want, we can either hit the green check mark up here on the left to validate, we can right mouse button click and say OK, or we can do a fast double right click for power users. All three options means OK. Next, we're going to create the next sketch in this tutorial, which is a rectangle. So to do so, we're going to go to the Sketch icon bar, and we're going to choose the rectangle icon. Now, because we have not selected a plane or a planar face to sketch on, TopSolid'7 is asking us to do so now. It's saying, please select the support plane. So I'm going to hold my middle mouse button down to rotate and select this face here. And like that, we're now drawing on that face. Now to locate our rectangle, I'm going to choose diagonally opposite corners. I'm going to start by hovering on that point there, and you can see it's going to add a relationship. And then I'm going to bring my mouse over to here and left click right on that edge, so I'm relating my sketch length to that edge as well. Now I'm going to hit escape real fast here, and I want to point out a couple things. First of all, you'll notice that this dimension reads 7.5. This dimension reads 115, but in parentheses. The parentheses tells you that it's a driven dimension. A driven dimension is a dimension that is driven by geometric change itself. So for example, if I go back and modify my original sketch and shift this edge, this sketch will follow suit, and that's because of this coincident relationship that was automatically added when I created the sketch. Now I want to modify this sketch here, or pardon me, this dimension here. So to do so, you just double left mouse button click on it, and we're going to set this to 12 millimeters. And like that, we now have our rectangle exactly at the size we want it to be. Next, we're going to go ahead and add a corner fillet. So we're going to go up in our sketch icon bar and go to the fillet radius function. And here we're going to set it to be 5 millimeters. So I'm going to type 5 and hit enter. And now I'm just going to choose the vertex that I want to apply that radius to. And here's something cool. You have an option called keep vertex, and you want to make sure that's checked because our dimension is driven to that point. When we say OK there, you can see the vertex has been maintained and our dimension has been maintained as well. And like that, we're now done with the fillet function. Next, we're going to add a pocket. And again, there's two ways to do this. One is to go to the Shape tab and choose Pocket. Another is just to right mouse button click and choose Pocket from the Smart menu or the right mouse button click contextual menu. Like that, we go into the pocket mode, and as you can see, we can drag this to whatever depth we want. The last time I used this mode, I was in inches. So if I double click here, I can type 5, for example, and hit enter, and it'll now switch to metric, which is the unit of measure we want to be working in. And I can drag this up and down to get it to the 6 millimeter value that we want. Or again, you can double click on the balloon there or set the value here. You'll notice also I have a fillet turned on here, and we want to turn that off. So I'm going to turn off blend fillet. TopSolid 7 is set to remember all the settings from the previous use of any dialog box. So be sure to check to make sure you have everything set the way you want. Once you're done, validate the operation. Next, we're going to create another sketch. But this time we're going to do it a little bit differently. Instead of going to our sketch icon bar, I'm just going to right click on the screen and see what I can do. And look at that, I can create a sketch. Again, because I never selected anything, the software is asking for a support plane. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that face there. Next, we're going to choose contour. And from here, I want to expand the contour dialog if it's not already done on your screen. You can minimize or maximize it just by clicking on its icon. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to start by clicking a spot right there. And I'm going to come over some distance to the right. And I want to make sure, by the way, that I'm going exactly horizontal. You can tell by the 0 degrees in the smart dimensions there. I'm going to left mouse button click to locate that. And now what we want to do is we want to make a tangent arc. There are a bunch of ways to do this, and I'm going to try to show you all of them just to show you some of the power of TopSolid 7 Sketcher. I can of course go to the dialog and switch to tangent arc, and like that you can see I'm drawing a tangent arc. I'm going to go back to line. Another way is I can tap the A button on my keyboard to switch to arc. Tap it to turn it off. Pretty cool. Yet another way, right mouse button click anywhere on the screen and switch to tangent arc. Pretty cool, right? There's yet one more way, and this is the most dynamic way. If you go and hover on your previous point and then drag back off this way, you'll get a tangent arc. If you go and hover on your point that way and drag off to the bottom, you get a perpendicular arc. Pretty cool, huh? Well, now I'm going to go ahead and create my arc, and I want to make a 180 degree arc, so I'm going to make sure that point is just below my last point. We're going to switch automatically to line. I want to drag my mouse over to here until I'm hovering over that point. Left click again, and I'm going to dynamically create my tangent arc. And to close it, I want to be tangent to that, so I'm just going to select, and now I have the sketch made that I'm looking to create. From here, I'm going to grab this point and move my mouse around it. You can see that the sketch is being maintained, and I'm dragging it around freely. Well, what I want to do is I want to locate that center point instead right on my edge of my part right there. So if I dynamically drag it down, it's going to automatically add that coincident relationship. Now, if yours doesn't do that, go up here and check to make sure you have automatic alignments and automatic relations turned on. You'll know they're turned on because their associated icons are lit up. From there, we're going to add some constraints or some dimensions. Again, you can go to the icon or you can right-click and choose constraint, whatever you're most comfortable with. So let's go ahead and add our dimensions. I'm going to start by adding a radius here. I'm going to set that to 10. I'm going to add a dimension from here to here. Maybe I'll drag that over to there and locate it. And that's going to be 2 millimeters. And I'll add a dimension from here to the other edge. And notice that you don't have to do anything special to drive by tangency here. That's pretty cool. We'll make that 20 millimeters. And like that, our sketch is now fully defined. And how do I know that again? It's because the sketch is blue. Next, we're going to use that sketch to trim away the model. Again, we can go up to Shape, and we can choose Trim from here if we want. But instead, I'm just going to right-click and choose Trim by Profile from this menu. You'll notice that I tend to right-click a lot. It's just where I'm more comfortable working. I want to make sure I'm on the right trimming method. Here I want to trim by extruded profile. And you'll notice that you get a preview. Everything in TopSolid 7 gives you dynamic previews, so you know you're getting exactly what you want before you even ask the software to calculate it. Please note that the arrow points to the side to delete. If I want to delete the outside of the profile, I just double-click on the arrow. Inside, double-click again to send it in. And once you're done, double fast right-click to validate. And like that, the trimming operation is complete. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add another sketch. But I'm going to show you the most direct way to create a sketch now, especially when you're just dealing with something prismatic like this part. I'm going to use my space mouse now to rotate, just to show you a different way of manipulating. And I'm going to go to this face, right mouse button click, and create a sketch directly on that face. And that's pretty cool. It just activates everything dynamically for us. It even goes to contour right away. That's pretty cool. Now you could create a rectangle using contour if you want, or you can just go to the rectangle command. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start on that edge and drag a rectangle down till I'm there. I'm going to hit Escape, and I'm going to add one more dimension. I want a dimension from that edge to this edge, and I'll locate that dimension. And I want to set all of them to be 6. So I'm going to type 6 and hit Enter. Double click, 6, Enter. Double click, 6, Enter. Like that, my sketch is fully defined. And at this point, we're now just going to use that to trim with as well. So I'm going to right click, Trim by Profile. You'll see the dynamic preview. If you look, the arrow's pointing to the inside, which is exactly what we want. So we'll validate. From here, we're going to right-click on that same face, create another sketch. It'll be another rectangle, starting at that point, coming down and referencing that edge. Now, I'm a lucky guy. It just so happens I drew that exactly where I wanted it, which is 2.5. If you didn't get it there, just double-click and modify it to be 2.5 millimeters. From here, we're going to create a pocket. Why are we going to create a pocket? Well, you'll see in a second. I'm going to go to Pocket, and like that, you can see I can grab on the grip to drag this to whatever depth I want. Now, I can go back in my print and figure out what the distance is from this face to this face, or I can change my limit condition to be up to a plane and just choose my planar face there. And what I'm doing here is capturing my design intent, and that design intent is that I'm pocketing from this face up to this face, regardless of where this face moves to in future design changes. Pretty neat. Let's validate that. And now that feature is complete. Next, we're going to add some 6 millimeter fillets. 2 ways to do this. As you're noticing in TopSolid 7 by now, you have multiple ways to get to the same end result, which is pretty cool. It lends a lot of freedom to individuals to design the way they're comfortable designing. So under the shape icon bar, I can go to fillet. Or, you guessed it, I can select an edge, for example, right mouse button click, and choose fillet as well. And like that, I'm going to set my value to 6 millimeters. Now, here, I hit Enter on accident. Well, when I hit Enter, it validated the fillet. What I'm going to do instead of deleting that feature is I'm just going to zoom up, right mouse button click on it, and choose Edit. This isn't really following the tutorial per se, but it's because I hit Enter. Now you know how to get back in and edit a feature. From there, I'm going to select this edge and this edge. So now I have the 3 edges that I want to apply that fillet to. and now we can validate. Next, I want to put a fillet on this edge. I want it to be actually smaller than this fillet, but I'm too lazy to go and grab the fillet function. So I'm going to show you a really cool feature of TopSolid 7. I'm going to hold the Control key down on my keyboard, grab this fillet, and drag and drop it onto that edge. Now in order to get that edge, I might need to use my toggle selection. So I'm going to, while holding my left button down, tap my right button once to grab just the edge, and then I'll let go. And as you can see, we just dynamically dragged and dropped that feature. Now, I want to modify that feature. I want to double click on it to get its driving dimension. Then I can double click on the dimension itself, set it to 3, and hit enter. Now, I've also decided that I would like to have the same 3mm fillet on this edge. Now I could drag and drop it on there, but it would be smarter if I just add that edge to the same feature. So I'm just going to right click on that fillet and edit its feature. And you notice here it's talking about the fillet feature right here. And I'll go ahead and select this edge here. And once that edge is selected, I'll validate, and you can see I've now added the fillet. And I'll double click on that face to hide the driving dimension as well. Now we're going to add one more fillet, and that's going to be over here. I'm just going to select this edge, right mouse button click, choose fillet, and we're going to set this to 5mm. Perfect. Okay, at this point, we've actually designed most of our model. But, as you notice, we've only designed half of it. So where we're going to go now is to what we call a pattern union. To access that, you're going to go to the Shape tab, and then to Pattern Union. The first thing it wants to know is what shape to modify. And you'll notice it already selected the solid for us. And now it wants to know what pattern. Well, if I click on the combo box here, you can see there are no patterns available. And this is a unique feature of TopSolid 7. If we had created a pattern for a feature elsewhere in this design, we could reuse it right now if we wanted the identical pattern. Since we haven't, we have to add a new type of pattern. So we'll hit the little plus sign here and choose Symmetrical Pattern. In this case, we want to choose a simple plane. And our symmetry plane can be a standard plane. It can be based off the plane referenced by any of the sketches, or it can be a planar face itself. So I can just choose this face right here. You get a little preview. We'll go ahead and validate, and we'll validate the pattern. And like that, you now have the entire model done. Just a few more steps. Real fast, I don't want to see these features anymore, so I'm going to just right click and hide those elements. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a bunch of chamfers. So let's go up to the shape icon bar and choose chamfer. I'm going to set myself to 0.75mm. And I'm going to select this top face, which grabs all those edges. And that'll grab that edge. I'm going to grab this edge, and basically all the edges that I want to add a chamfer to. And you can see I'm going to zoom up, grab there. We'll grab this edge here as well. Let's go to the other side and grab those missing edges too. Once you have all the edges selected, go ahead and validate this operation. Okay, the last feature that we're going to add is our tapped hole. To do that, I'm just going to go right on this face, right mouse button click, and choose drilling. Of course, I could have chosen drilling up here from the icon bar as well. From here, I'm going to switch to tapped hole. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the right standard, in this case metric. And I'm going to look for my nominal diameter to be 10mm. You can see it automatically searched the database, found a 10mm diameter tapping, and set the pitch correctly for it. We also want complete tapping to be true. And then we want to go to the hole and set it to be, yeah, through works for me. Why not? Okay? And like that, I'm just going to zoom up over here, and I can drag this feature wherever I want it to be. And in this case, we can also double click on the value. For example, I want this to be at 11 1/4, and I want this to be at 25. Now that's exactly located where I want it, so I can validate the drilling. And you can notice when we added tapping in TopSolid 7, the tapped holes look tapped. Okay, let's exit out of drilling. You'll notice that drilling stayed up on my screen. It might not have hit on yours. The reason is because I had the push pin pushed in. If I was to select there, that means after I apply a drilling, it will automatically close the function. So it's up to you whether or not to leave the functions modal or not. The last thing that we're going to do to this is we're going to define the properties of this part. And the properties are used for documentation down the road in such things like your bill of materials. So to define your properties, you're going to go to your Project Manager tree, select the part, right mouse button click, and go to Properties. And here, a window is going to pop up. I'm just going to click Edit, and I'm going to fill this in the way I want. I do want the name to stay as base. The description here might be something like, this is the base of the small vise. Part number, you can use your imagination. I'm going to type SM5500. Again, just following the written tutorial that you're following. The manufacturer, I'm going to be creative here and say it's my company, ClearCut Solutions. The manufacturer part number is 100. The ERP number is maybe 101. And maybe the maximum clamp pressure is 15 kilograms. Like that, the properties are now set. The very last thing you want to do is make sure you save your work. There's lots of ways to save your work. You can go up here and just hit Save. That's for the current document. Save All if you have multiple documents open and you want to save everything. I can right mouse button click on the tab and hit Save or Save All. I can also right click on the part itself and go to Save. So you can see lots of ways to work. By the way, one last point, you can also hit Control S on your keyboard, standard Windows Save. At this point, you've now designed the base and are ready to move on to the next section of this tutorial. I hope you found this video to be informative and you've learned a lot about TopSolid 7.